All right, so let's get started. I don't want to waste your time. I know that this is a big topic. And let me just tell you, this week has been really weird. I have just gotten more email and more phone calls about what's going wrong in their homeschools than I've had in a while. And then I remembered, oh yeah, it's the end of the first month in the northern hemisphere. You're all just barely underway. And what that means is that once you get into the end of the first month, the initial high of those perfect books that used to be crisp and the spines were beautiful, now they're written in. And you can't find the math book. And you're looking around the house for sharpened pencils, right? This is what's going on. The kids are a little bit more bored. They aren't just driven forward by your initial enthusiasm. And so some of what's going on is just that cycle. I call it the adventure cycle, where the brand newness has worn off a little bit and now you're kind of settling into the routine, but the routine sometimes creates this between kids, right? So that's one of the things that's happening. Yes, the honeymoon is over, as Leslie says. Christy agrees. Exactly. There's this feeling like, there's 9 more months of this. So let's talk about those 9 months, because you're not going anywhere. So the name of this talk is When It All Goes Wrong. And these are my little PowerPoints on a note card, right? Part of what's going on is you are spinning a whole bunch of plates. You've got not just the educational plates spinning, and there's usually 6 to 8 of those depending on how many subjects, how many children, but you are also figuring out how to fit meals in. And when is the soccer practice? And, my husband has, football tickets and he's gone every Sunday. And I've got girlfriends who want to meet and have lunch once a week. And I don't ever want to go out for lunch because I've got to be home with my kids. But I need to have friends, so maybe I should consider Saturday morning brunches. Like, these are all the things going on. And then you're also supposed to keep a neat house, exercise, have a little quiet time each morning, right? This is the myth of, it only takes me 15 minutes a day. I remember adding up all the 15 minutes a day that someone told me I should be doing: exercise, devotional time, practicing my guitar, planning for homeschool, being one-on-one with one of my kids, a little conversation with my husband. Anyway, the number came out to 4 hours a day. I thought, well, no wonder I'm not doing all of those. It wasn't possible. Who has 4 hours a day? I have 15 minutes to clean up, and then I don't get to do another 15 minutes, right? So part of it is, it's just not possible to get it all done. We have all these spinning plates, and we don't know which one to let crash. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But the other thing that is getting in the way of you feeling good about homeschool, it's stuff you know. And I made a list, and I don't want to forget any, so let me just read them to you. The first one is your chronic self-doubt. And of course, we all have it. We're doing this thing we weren't trained for. We kind of jumped in on a lark. I mean, we may have done all of the research, but you went in sort of blindfolded. It's like, I'll learn as I go. So of course you have self-doubt. That's just natural. Secondly, you have what I call justified fears. They're not unjustified. The state cares about how you are raising your children. Your husband, if you're married, or your wife, if you're the husband who home educates, cares about how your children are being educated, right? So you have people very close to you evaluating you. But you also have just your own drive and conscience. You're worried that if it all rests on you, you won't do a good job. And so the only time you find out if it worked is at the end. You can't go back and fix it. So that's why you have what I call justified fears. And by the way, if anything I say resonates with you, give me a little love and just tap on the right side of your screen and you'll give me hearts. And I really appreciate that. Yes, Hope says even after 20. That's right. So what happens is we don't have the outcome to look at and reassure us that it's all going to turn out. So we're justifiably afraid. Or another one. Homeschoolers are big-time idealists. Do you know what that means? They think that there is a superior method of education called homeschooling, and it's better than what everyone else does, or they wouldn't have chosen it. And there's a right outcome that they need to achieve in order to validate that homeschooling was a good choice. Does that make sense? So here's the problem. The reputation of homeschooling is resting on these sweet little shoulders. You are sitting there feeling like you are actually representing homeschool every time you talk to someone. It's not just you and your kids, it's homeschooling. I am the ambassador of homeschooling. You can't live up to that. Let me just take that off you right now. You don't owe homeschooling anything. It's okay with me if when you get together with your public school friends on the soccer field while you're watching a game, if you complain about homeschool. I give you permission. You can say, oh, this week was horrible. I wished I could have put my kids on the yellow bus like you do. Just be honest. It's okay. All parents have moments where they feel like the method they chose for education is not optimal. And you get to feel that way too. It's no indictment of your commitment or how it will all turn out. It's just reality. And if you share honestly like that with your friends, they're actually going to admire the choice you made more because you're going to seem human, not like you're some superior being, right? Jen says, next up, fear of judgment. Absolutely. It's easy to feel like you're going to be judged. But guess what? You judge people too. You look at your public school friends and sometimes you think, oh, those poor dears with all of that homework. How sad that this parent doesn't know to put her kids in a homeschool environment. Don't you do that? We all do that. We do it because we're protecting the choices we've made. So give a little grace to your friends and let them give some grace to you. Be honest. You don't have to represent homeschool. Okay? All right. And then the last one that I wanted to mention is that there is a natural chaos to child rearing. It does not submit to our linear processes. It is this sort of volatile, every year is different, stages of development that show up in each child in combination with each other, in combination with your stages of development as an adult, and you have this big soup that won't be wrestled into a system. That's partly why it doesn't feel good all the time when you homeschool. That's natural. That means living, breathing human beings live in your house. Okay? So now we understand why it doesn't always feel good, why some weeks suck. Okay? Can we just use that ugly word and say it? Sometimes homeschooling sucks. Sometimes being a stay-at-home mom is not fun. Sometimes you want a break from the responsibility and the obligation, right? If you feel that's true, can you just put a little yes in in your comments? Just get it off your chest. Yes, sometimes I find this really hard. Okay, there you go. Absolutely. Everybody agrees. See, I want you to feel like you're not alone. This is common. This is ordinary. There you go. All right, so if you are wondering if you're alone, I want you to read these comments and remind yourself, nope, everybody has weeks, months, even sometimes an entire year that feels like it never quite got off the ground, and that's okay. So, but we want to do something about it, and I think it's fair to do something about it. So let's go ahead and figure this out. Before we can know how to fix your homeschool, we have to know what kind of homeschool you actually want. So one of the things that I would like you to do right now is just ask yourself, really briefly, if you have a sheet of paper, jot it down. If you want to put it in the comments, you can. How would you know that your homeschool was working? What would tell you, yeah, this was a great day, or this was an awesome month? What would that be? How do you measure whether or not your homeschool feels successful to you? Anyone? Oh, Leslie says identity driven. Interesting. I like that combination of words. Identity driven. What else? What other things? Excited learners, says L.E. Barnes. Thank you. Bless this mom. Boils it right down to happy children. Middle way mom says passionately curious. Yes, if Leslie says if her boy is learning, a sense of peace and children being validated. What my child says to others about homeschooling, love it. Curiosity, excited to discover and learn. Relaxed learning and a dialogue from the heart of my teen, says Lori Garrett. Christy says relaxed and curious. Seeing my son reading independently. Wonderful. Our atmosphere has remained conducive to learning. Lovely, good. Lady Dusk writes a weekly review to see what did happen so she doesn't forget. Great practice. Good. Healthy relationships and love of learning. A. Wishman, thank you. I love that. To me, that boils it right down to two of the essentials. So how do we get there? You know, healthy relationships and a love of learning. How do we get there? You guys, this is awesome. You guys are doing great. Well, I want to suggest something. I don't think that it is about the philosophy of education that you pick. So I think you can be an unschooler or a classical educator or a person who uses teaching textbooks or somebody who's eclectic, or you might be Charlotte Mason, or maybe you're a BraveWriter mom. I think you can be almost any of those if you get the context right. So the piece that's missing in our homeschools is contextual. It has to do with the feel, the vibe of the home. It has to do with, do I like being here or do I not want to be here? Because then the learning will happen. And some of that might be curriculum driven. At times it is. And there are moments where you need to address curriculum. But I'm about to suggest to you that if you bring the following 3 properties into your family lives, your homeschool experience is going to go up. Okay? Yeah, Charlotte Mason says education is an atmosphere. Absolutely. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. So let's look at that. I've got 3 tips for you and then a bonus tip right at the end. So if you want to stay to the end, you'll get the bonus tip. This broadcast will be on replay for 24 hours on Periscope, and then we may post it to the blog in the next week, so you'll be able to see it there. Okay? So share with your friends now if you want them to come on or be able to see in the replay in the next 24 hours. Get them ready for these tips. Okay? So here we go. What I want to talk about is this. And remember, I did a Periscope last week called the Enchanted Education, which has gone crazy. I mean, so many people are sending me messages. They're using the word enchanted now on their blogs and in their own Periscopes. So I know we struck a nerve. And so here's what I want to read to you. This is something I wrote today while I was thinking about this topic. In the Enchanted Education, mastery of a subject, a skill, is the fruit of passionate engagement that motivates sustained application of the self to skill development. So let me put this in regular English. Kids work really hard at the thing they want to master when they feel like they are passionately engaged. They have a curiosity and an aliveness that drives them forward. So we want to look at how do we create the context for that to happen. So ready? This was my little PowerPoint. It's the context, sweetheart. And if you want, you can take a screenshot and send this off to Twitterland, and you'll see the hearts turn into little cameras. Okay, so context. Here is point 1. Are you ready for it? All right, ready? Surprise! Surprise is point 1. Let me explain. Sometimes I talk about in writing that the most not revered literary element, the most neglected, the one never taught, is the element of surprise. In fact, you could possibly state that the best writing is surprising writing and that all other writing fails. Let's just take that in for a moment. Writing that connects to readers is surprising. surprising facts, if it's nonfiction, a surprising take on a well-known subject, surprising language choices, surprising elements, surprising storylines. We are drawn forward by the element of surprise. And so what I want to suggest to you is it's not just a literary element. It's actually the element of what it means to engage living. Surprise drives us forward. And if you think about it, that's been true. The most exciting moments of your life have been surprising. You know, when your spouse proposed to you, when your baby was born and you had that very first encounter, when you embarked on homeschooling and you were completely enthralled by this huge experience that you had never had before, being responsible for seeing the lights go on in your children. Surprise is this ally in education. And so I want to talk about some ways to create surprise. Surprise comes from not knowing what's coming next, right? So what does that mean then for typical workbook work for kids? Well, it's like they're being driven forward by a routine or pressure, right? They're being told, okay, you just have to fill out these pages. But there's no surprising connection. For example, oh, look at this. Amy says she used the surprise idea to play a new game and placed it on the schoolwork table, and it was a big hit. Exactly. I shared last week in the Hacks for Homeschooling a Day Going Wrong that you could clear your coffee table and you, at night, after the kids are in bed, and you can put something surprising on that table to be discovered. Not to be talked about, not to be assigned. Just put out jacks. Put out pickup sticks. Put out a brand new card game. Leave clay that hasn't yet been taken out of the package available to be played with. Surprise your children. Entice them toward learning. Let them explore a product before you assign the product, right? So think about that for a moment. If we are going to work on something like reading, let's think about why we teach reading. Do we teach reading so they can pass a state exam at the end of the year? Anyone? Is that the reason we teach reading? Do we teach reading so that they're able to fill out official forms for the government or so they can apply to college? Why do we teach reading? Anyone want to venture a guess? Who wants to share? Why do we teach reading? Artistic invitations. What a beautiful word pair. Thank you, girl like the sea. Reading, yes, for wonder, delight, to transport them to new worlds, says Jen, so they can learn, to encounter ideas. It's part of being human. And you know what? We know that for reading, don't we? We know that they're going to educate themselves if they can read. They're going to enter new worlds. They'll discover who they are. They'll learn about, yes, free thinking. They'll learn about how to make sense of this big world they live in through reading, for connection. We know that so well about reading. We don't know it as well about math. A lot of times the reason math becomes this battleground is children have no vision. They don't know what it's for. They don't know how to explore it in a way that's relevant today. So if you're doing adding and subtracting pages day after day after day, and your child is suddenly tired of it, well, wouldn't you be? I would be. But what if they get to use those skills today in a meaningful way? And what would that look like? Would it look like baking a couple dozen cookies and bringing them to the nursing home and then having to divide them into groups and share them with people? Would it mean like we did with Johanna? She had to save money to buy her first American Girl doll. And so we had one of those sticker puzzles, and each time she accumulated a certain amount of money, she got to apply a sticker to the puzzle. So she had this connection of accumulation, which made adding much more personal for her. I remember when Noah was learning about math, and of course I wasn't great at math, so you cannot take your cues from me. I've learned a lot about math through my children who've told me the best ways to teach it. And what Noah has shared with me is that it's taking risks and being curious. When he was in like 8th or 9th grade, he decided to make a times table chart that was base 12. that means he had to come up with 2 extra digits and literally multiply those through and keep them on the little card. He kept it in his wallet for years. It's impossible for me to even understand how he did that. But it was a curiosity and a surprise and a fascination. So we want to bring surprise into the homeschool. That means changing pace. That means new materials. That means doing what's unexpected. You know, if your kids are balking, now's the time to tell a joke, throw in a movie, get out the food, add a brownie. Subvert their expectations. That's what surprise is about. Okay, let's look at the second one. Chase life. Chase life. If you see happiness happening in your family, holy smokes, follow it. Get out there on the trampoline with the kids. Run around in the backyard with a soccer ball and the dog. If kids are all happily busy constructing a fort in the living room, go for it. Get in the fort. Chase signs of life. This changes the dynamic. If the whole day is going wrong, this is the time for you to get up and do something different. And I'm telling you, we have this philosophy in BraveWriter. When the crying comes, the learning is done. So if you see huge struggle and anger, then this is the time to shift gears. Now, oh, look at that. We built a bean teepee for this very reason. I love that. That's beautiful. You know, setting up a picnic in the backyard and serving food. Maybe even just taking those workbooks that they are doing to a Starbucks, changing the environment, following them into what is life-giving. So that's the goal. And one of the things I want you to know is when you do that, you give your kids permission to chase life as well. So if you are still thinking to yourself, Julie, this won't help me. Mine is far worse than this. Hang on. That's what the bonus tip is for. So hang in here. There's more coming. These are principles that I want you to explore. And I want you to know this. You won't figure it out in a day. It's going to take a year, maybe 2, to change your paradigm. And here's why. This is the third tip. Ready for it? Trust. Trust. I can give you a tip and you won't apply it except for a day. I know this because I talk to parents all day, every day. I've been working with homeschoolers in an official capacity for 16 years, but I've been around them for 30. And I've worked as a homeschooler around homeschooling friends. And here's what I know. We all want instant results. We want to see every day be the same. We're all about the routine, the lesson plan, how to organize the material, how to measure progress, everything that undermines surprise and chasing life, actually. The things that actually undermine mystery, awe, the treasure hunt, the feeling of the little key that unlocks the door to a magical life. We're all about systems and containers. And that's the adult way. So the only way for us to enter this other kind of life is a repeated revisiting of these ideas. Like I hope that you'll actually re-listen to this Periscope and the one on brain-based learning and Enchanted Education, because you've got to change your paradigm. And it comes through multiple exposures and community. It doesn't just come from one tip. It's like this. You'll do one of my ideas. You'll take the clear the coffee table idea and you'll go buy the game and you'll have a really great day and it will re-energize you for that afternoon. And then the next day you might try poetry tea time. And then the next day you might indulge and read 3 chapters out of a book and scrap the math pages for the day. And you'll feel this and you'll see your kids suddenly like take the video camera and make a movie and you'll think, it's working, it's working. And then you'll go to this soccer game and you'll sit next to the public school mom and she's sitting next to her buddy and they pull out this packet of all the work their 3rd graders are doing in school. And it will shoot you in the heart. You're going to say to yourself, crud, poetry tea time doesn't teach them how to write paragraphs. I have neglected the essentials just because of this idea. And I mean, we can do poetry tea times once in a while, but I've got to buckle down. I've got to get back into gear. I've got to make them do writing. And then, yes, it causes a small panic. That's what Melody said. I remember that feeling. I remember it happening to me at a gymnastics class. I was sitting there waiting for my 2 kids to finish. I was sitting next to a woman who had kids in a Catholic school, and she pulled out the packet, and I suddenly panicked and thought, I don't even know what the objectives are for 2nd grade. I might not be doing them. And then I went home, and what did I do? I just downloaded all that anxiety on top of my children's head. Isn't that what you do? You do it unwittingly. You don't say, oh, I had this conversation with this friend who made me freak out. You say, hey, everybody sit down. We've got stuff to get through. I don't want any more excuses, right? It's a feeling that we are failing them. Absolutely. That's what you're feeling. So I want you to trust that this is a marathon, not a sprint, that you won't know the outcome until the end. But if you buy in to creating a good life for your family and you right now, I promise you the academics get thrown in because you're not going to let those go. You're just not. We just proved that. But we have to reclaim the context for all of that to happen. So here's the thing. Be patient. Keep coming back. Stay in community with people who understand that your family deserves a rich life, not just academics. You get one life. You're a mom. You get one life. You're a dad. Do you want to be happy during it, or just a martyr, trudging through the mud of homeschool, right? The idea that, oh my gosh, I'm doing this for them. If they only knew how much it was taking out of me. No, you get to have a rich life now. You get to enjoy being home with your kids. What a privilege. Enjoy them. The moment you feel resentment rising up, I want you to ask yourself, what surprises have been a part of our lives this week? Just ask that question. How have we transcended the ordinary this week? Just a little, you need just a little pixie dust, just a little fairy dust. You know what I mean? We're not asking you to overhaul all your plans. It's okay with me if you guys are more bookish and somebody else is more kinesthetic. That's fine. But what does it look like in your family to create a little magic, a little surprise? We always say that poetry tea times are the gateway drug to BraveWriter. Why? Because without fail, they reset the thermostat of the home. It's not that kids learn how to write necessarily from poetry, although it absolutely helps. It absolutely does do that invisible work. It's because you believe in poetry tea time. You've bought in. You believe that you're actually doing meaningful academics while creating a rich context for learning. And that's why it works. The magic is in you. You're it. Your smile, your tone of voice, your energy, your openness, your truth, sharing your feelings. These are the issues I want you to remember. These are the points. This is the rail your homeschool runs on. All right, are you ready for the bonus tip? If you have friends that you think should be here, tell them, because this is literally the most important thing I'm going to say today. This is it. This is the bonus tip. This is for all of you who have really felt crushed by your homeschool experience. And there are reasons that you feel that way. Some of you aren't sure your marriage is going to make it, and you're a homeschooler. Are you allowed to have a failed marriage and be a homeschooler? Some of you are dealing with pain and issues that are coming up from your own childhood, and you don't know where to turn. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm remembering bad things that happened to me as a child, and yet I'm trying to homeschool my kids, and I don't know what to do with that. Some of you have just miscarried and you're grieving and you can't quite get back on top of it because you're still grieving. Others of you have parents in nursing homes or going through cancer and surgery. Some of you have cancer. There are reasons that it's hard to stay on top of it that have nothing to do with your educational philosophy. And sometimes it has to do with your educational philosophy. And often it's both. It's all happening at once. And you're just worried that they're not doing their math pages. So, bonus tip. Ready? When you have pain in your life, whether it's from homeschool, personal life, marriage, whatever's going on with you, you create damage. You're hard on your kids. You pick programs because they're easy for you but not fun for your children. You're limited financially, so you can't get the kind of help that you really need. Your home is in remodeling hell. You're not really speaking to your husband, but you're trying to pretend like you guys get along. As you feel those feelings, here's what you're doing to your kids. You're shaming them. You're blaming them. You're taking it out on them. You don't mean to. We all have done it. We yell because we're at our wits' end, or our feelings were deeply wounded by some interaction we had, maybe with our mothers. And so our kids feel this huge pressure, our anxiety about their educations being dumped on their heads. And so what we do is we damage them. We threaten, we shame, we blame. So here's your bonus tip. Ready? Repair the damage. Repair the damage. I'm going to tell you how to do that now. Ready? Get out a pen and paper because I'm going to give you steps that you can actually take. And I've given these steps thousands of times. I do this on the phone almost every day with someone. I've written about it on the blog. I've shared about it at conferences and in person. Here's what you do. You go belly up. You take your kid, the one that's been damaged, and Noah will tell you, if you listen to my podcast called Manage the Damage, you'll hear Noah and I talking about it because I've had to do it with him. I've had to do it with every single one of my kids. I have 5 kids. So I'm guessing maybe you'll have to do it with 100% of yours over the course of a homeschool life of 17 or 20 years. Yeah. You go belly up. That's number 1. You say to your child, this feels like I can't solve it right now. We are at such loggerheads about writing or about math or about the willingness to sit in a chair and follow through on commitments. Whatever that issue is that you've been hammering with your child, you go belly up. Take that, that's the first step. The second, take that child somewhere out of the house to have a conversation. So you can say to them, hey, want to go get cafe lattes? You know, maybe if it's a teenage boy, you go to Taco Bell. Pick a place they want to go. Red Robin has bottomless root beer floats. That's a great place to take a kid. Pick something that's away from the home where you can have eye contact and focused attention. And then you're going to say to your child this, a little version of this speech. I've been noticing that we are not making progress in XYZ area. And I realize that I've been pushing and pushing and pushing, and it's not changing the dynamic. I am sorry for being that person in your life. I don't want to be that person in your life. Now, here's the key that you need to say. I feel this huge pressure of responsibility to meet the demands of the state, to give you the education you deserve, and personal responsibility to give you the education I long for you to have. And sometimes that backs up on me, and I take it out on you because it's as though you will fulfill my goals for my life if you do what I need you to do. So I apologize for that. I recognize that that's what I'm doing. On the flip side, you are needing this education, but you don't quite see the relevance of it. And some of this is a pain point for you. Can you tell me right now what you don't like about this subject? And now you wait and you listen with both ears and a very open heart. Just open yourself up. You're going to hear some hard stuff back, I promise you. Some of your kids are going to say some really honest things to you. You have to create space for that to happen. Make it, if they say, oh, no, nothing, it's not bugging me, you can dig a little deeper. You can say, you know what? The fact that you don't want to do math and we fight about it all the time tells me that something's not right. Can you please let me know what that is? I promise I'm not here to judge you. I'm really here to learn from you and create the space. And then they're going to tell you. And then this is how you wind up the communication. Oh, Jordan lost her husband during the first year of homeschool from a heart attack. Yeah, that's going to derail you for like a year. And I have a blog post called Homeschooling Through Grief, which you could look up, and I think it would be helpful for you. Yeah, so you're going to set this up. You're going to belly up. That's number one. Number two, you're going to take your child out of the house for a one-on-one. You own your anxiety about your responsibility, and you acknowledge your child's current disillusionment with whatever subject area you're dealing with. And then you open yourself to hearing their truth. Some kids are going to tell you they want to go to school. Some are going to say, like my son Liam did, I hate handwriting. It hurts and I don't want to do it. Oh my goodness, somebody dreamt she was apologizing to her daughter. How powerful. Your unconscious aiding you. That's beautiful. Once they've told you, don't do anything with it. Receive it. Thank them for sharing openly. And give them this perspective. Say, you know what? I have heard you. And I want the two of us to think through these ideas. One, that you really don't want to write or do math. And two, I feel an obligation, a responsibility to you to provide you with an education. And I want us to bring those together and find a way to get you that education in this subject in as pain-free a manner as possible. In other words, I will be on your side. And we are going to figure out a way to help this happen. Now, with my son Liam, whoa, oh goodness, my little tripod just fell. Okay, here I am. So with my son Liam, we had this problem with his handwriting. He was dysgraphic. So he was really unwilling. I'm going to take these off so I can just look right at you. He was unwilling to handwrite, even math. You know what? That was at age 9. He didn't write 9, 10, and 11. Every 6 months, we would take a walk, just the two of us. And this is what I said to him. So at the initial conversation, I just told him, I hear you. You don't have to write. For now, we'll do homeschool with every other way except handwriting. And that lifted his mood and changed how he approached every subject. Then every 6 months, we would take a walk. And I would say to Liam, so it's been 6 months. Are you ready to get some help with writing? And then he would say, nope. And that went on for several years. Now, I'm not telling you to do this. Each family has to evaluate the dynamic between the parent and the child and what makes you both feel good. I'm telling you this because this is my 4th child, and I was willing to risk a little bit more with him than I might have been with Noah. And what happened is, when we got into that 3rd year where he was not really handwriting, he had to fill out a form for his lacrosse team and couldn't do it. And he came to me and he said, Mom, I'm ready to work on handwriting. Because now he saw the connection. Remember how I said that at the beginning? Why are they learning to read? Why are they learning to do math? He couldn't figure out why writing was going to benefit him. Handwriting specifically. He was okay with the other kind, but handwriting. When he finally got the connection and some maturity, and he knew I was truly on his team, he took it on. And in 2 years' time, he turned it around with the help of a therapist. I share this with you, not because it's the magical cure. It's not the magical cure. What it is it's the only pathway to a healthy family dynamic. It's the only pathway. The academics at that point are secondary. If you are terrorizing your child with academics and they're letting you know in all their resistance that things aren't going well for them, and you haven't taken the time to understand what it is that isn't working, then what are you going to do? It's up to you to change the dynamic. Now, let me just address really briefly teenagers, because teenagers are a slightly different breed than these younger kids. You can still do the talk. It still matters. But what's different with teens is this. They now need to feel the responsibility more than you do. And this takes courage on your part. You have to actually let go. And that's really hard. So you can say, I am happy to facilitate you learning chemistry, understanding algebra 2, taking a foreign language. I will drive you. I will pay for you. I will sit next to you 20 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, whatever you think is realistic. But you want that feeling to shift. You can say, I support and love you. Here's the feast of opportunities. Here's my energy to help you. And then you let go. You let go because you cannot make a teenager learn. And some of your teens are going to do fine. They're going to jump on it. They're going to go to school possibly. They're going to be self-starting. They're going to, use online classes, whatever. And then some of your teens, they're going to take their time. They're not going to go to college at 18. They're going to have a gap year. And you can brainstorm some of that. Would they rather travel to Europe than start college? Maybe. We'll do a talk on teens, but I just wanted to let you know that that's kind of what happens with the older ones. Yeah, Heather says you sort of have to be willing to let them fail. Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. So let's look at the time here. Oh my gosh, perfect. I'll take some questions now. Does anyone want to ask me something? I got my glasses back on, and I'm happy to handle some of these personal situations that you can fit in a comment. We'll talk more about this subject. It's really important. But just to review while we're waiting for people's comments, surprise, changing the paradigm to include mystery, awe, risk, adventure, and surprise. 2, chase life. And 3, trust. Trust. And finally, repair the damage. All right, so I have 2 questions. Advice for boys who lose focus, and how did you cover other subjects when he wasn't writing? Well, guess what? I did a lot of transcribing for Liam, but he also compensated in this very amazing way. He learned how to memorize, read, type. He did math in his head. During those 3 years, we created a notebook together. I took advantage of his love of video games, and we created, if you have our partnership writing product, the project that I'm talking about is the Imaginary Island Chain. Liam created an imaginary island chain. Each island had its own page. It had, military, it had a flag, it had a motto, it had the superpowers that were part of that island. And he would write a little tiny bit, a couple of words, and then I would write the rest for him. But guess what? He was drawing the islands. He was using his skills of map reading from video games to fill in mountains and military. So he was doing a little bit, but it wasn't traditional. Would you recommend taking a step back from academics if there's a lot of home organizing and then sensitivity to correction? Okay. All right. I hope I can remember all these. So that's what I did with Liam. Someone asked about boys who lose focus. So the issue isn't that they're losing focus. It's that they're not focused on what you want them to be focused on, right? Kids are often driven toward technology and want to rush everything. How to encourage unplugged learning? Well, how about you unplugging and learning too? If you do that, you can start to role model it and bring in resources and go places that are unplugged. But let me get back to the focus. Let's talk about focus, right? It's hard when they're all rolling in. So what we want to observe with our kids is that they need to be able to hang out in a space that allows you to observe what engages their focus. Move into an observation mode. Maybe don't do any school for a week and see what they do during that week. What's engaging their focus? You can teach through anything. Literally, you can teach all the subjects through video games, not kidding. because there's history, science, reading, and math in video games. So let's pay attention to our kids. Let's observe them. Someone asked me, what do you do with a 6-year-old who refuses to do school? Well, heck, why is a 6-year-old doing school? My most popular blog post is the best curriculum for a 6-year-old. And literally the first item is face paints and dress-up clothes. Read them stories, make them treats, take them to the exotic supermarket, go to the zoo, play games, goof around with words, learn tongue twisters, run with the dog in the backyard, take nature walks, visit the art museum. 6-year-olds are easy, man. Don't do school. Why would you sit down at a table with a 6-year-old? They're just way too much fun. I had to sit down with my 6-year-old son and sang songs, did art, treats, Minecraft stuff. Absolutely. Here's the thing. A lot of times when we have young kids, we are so excited. If our oldest is only 6 or 7, they seem so old compared to a baby, but they're really still really, really young. I'm just letting you know that. And so here's the thing. We're all eager to start homeschooling because we're adults and we like that feeling of school. But a 6-year-old is just curious about the world. So what I always tell parents is go get a hobby, go study something for yourself, take a Coursera course, read all the Jane Austen novels in your free time, and then give your 6-year-old what he needs, which is play. Play-Doh, making cupcakes, going to the zoo, taking walks. And the problem is this, the academics are always going to be there. So delay as long as possible. Raymond and Dorothy Moore have a book called Better Late Than Early. I think that's a good philosophy to have about children at home. Yeah, go read my blog post. It's called The Best Curriculum for a 6-Year-Old. At what age should it become mandatory to do the math book? Well, see, that's the thing. Mandatory for me wouldn't be the right language because that leads to conflict before we even start. So let's think of words like invitation. So I would say this, mathematical concepts have already started from the time your baby is learning how to count his toes and fingers. So read lots of library books that tell the story of math. Ask really crazy questions like, how do we count 0? How about asking your kids, how many steps are in the house? And what happens if you go up them 2 by 2? Have them count things. In our Jot It Down project, we actually have a project called Big Numbers. And all it is this huge series of questions about measurements of things. How far away is the sun? Kids love big math questions. Yeah, ask Siri math questions. Great idea, Jill. Yeah, so that's one of the things you want to get out of is this school mindset. And instead, think about invitation, surprise, curiosity, adventure. How can you make math more interesting? Could you, for instance, create a treasure hunt in your house where they have to solve little mathematical problems all the way through the house to get the treat at the end? It's up to you to imbue these subjects with meaning for children, not meaning for adulthood, meaning for children. Okay, any others? Any other questions? This has been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it. I will leave you with this. If you are interested to know more about how I see writing, language arts, and homeschool, go to the blog, blog.bravewriter.com. Somebody says, what if you are overwhelmed with many kids? Oh, yes. Any of us with lots of kids get overwhelmed. So we will definitely do a big family Periscope. Let's see. Oh, Paula says it's a mistake to watch this without a notebook. Well, fortunately, there's a replay, so you can get your notebook and watch it again. And remember what I said at the beginning. Repetition, hearing these ideas, letting them sink down. Role model that for your kids. Keep your own journal in front of them. Take notes in front of them. Talk about how your ideas about education are growing and changing, and ask them for their participation and feedback. Try something and say, was that fun? Did that work? Do you like that? Involve them. School isn't being done to your children. You're creating a life of learning as a family together. Get their feedback and take it seriously. So check out the blog. Check out BraveWriter.com. You can sign up on the homepage to join my email list where I will send you a 17-page PDF of free writing ideas to use with your kids. It's called Free Writing Frenzy. And if you don't know anything yet about BraveWriter, that is a fabulous place to start. It will change how you think about writing with your kids right away. And it maximizes these principles about surprise and changing the dynamic around writing, okay? We're going to do more of these Periscopes. I don't even know what I'm going to do on Monday yet. I have this big long list. If you want to send me topics, send them to me at julie@bravewriter.com. All right, let's see here. I think we've done it. I think we've come to the end. I really welcome your participation, and I thank you for sharing this with your followers. Replay viewers, you're just as able to share it and tap the screen with hearts. Yes, thank you, Jen. A masterclass in homeschool. Oh, Jill, party school. Yes, we definitely need to do that. Thank you, Ruby, for your feedback. I love having all of you here. You're part of what makes this whole dynamic operational. So, live honestly and write bravely.